Perhaps the most interesting part of Genshin Impact has to be its diverse list of nations. Each country in Teyvat brings a unique story in each Archon quest, mostly because each nation is inspired by a real part of our world. But beyond this, the characters that hail from these nations also serve an important role in making this game unique. When diving deeper into their lore, it becomes apparent that some of our playable characters actually share similarities with real-life historical figures. So in this video, I'll be explaining which characters in the game seem to be based on real people from history. This includes comparing Beidou to a famous Chinese pirate, the scholars of Sumeru to real Arab scientists, Candace to a real Nubian queen, and even connecting A to a real Japanese shogun. A ton of comparisons would be made in this video, so please feel free to use the timestamps in the description to skip to a certain part. With that being said, please sit back and enjoy the video. Many of us know that Liyue is representative of Chinese culture, and Beidou bears a lot of similarities with a real woman from Chinese history. A lot of her character seems to be inspired by China's most famous female pirate, Shih, also known as Zheng Yi Sao. Though pirates are mostly barbaric thieves, Beidou is known for being merciful, at least for a pirate. She shares her spoils evenly with her men, never picks on the innocent, and is always known for giving to the poor. Likewise, Shih also has a similar reputation. She would punish her men for harming innocent civilians, shares riches evenly with her crew members, and even led a similar pirate group. Shih's pirates were known as the Red Fleet, and the members of Beidou's crooks also don a similar red color scheme. However, perhaps the biggest similarity between Beidou and Shih has to be their origins, specifically cultural origins. You see, China is extremely diverse, and the Mandarin-speaking Han ethnic group is only one of many. Shih was considered to be from the Tanka ethnic group, which are from the Cantonese-speaking regions such as Hong Kong and Macau. Tanka people are mostly known for making their living off of the sea, and Shih grew up in one of these iconic fishing communities that Tankas are known for. Just like how Shih's ethnic group is famous for fishing communities, Beidou tells the traveler that she also grew up in a small fishing village. This makes Beidou's childhood match perfectly with the lifestyle with Shih's own people group. Moreover, larger similarities could be seen in their own respective mythologies. In Chinese legend, it is thought that the Tanka people are descendants from water serpents, which is why they are all so well versed with living by the ocean. Just like how the Tankas are thought to get their skills from water serpents, Beidou's story of obtaining an elemental vision is also associated with a water serpent. After defeating Haishan, a giant water snake, Beidou received an electro-vision, and her powers even mimic that of a giant water serpent. When performing her elemental burst, the electricity that surrounds her copies the shape of a water serpent. So in the end, not only does Beidou follow the same pirate reputation of Shih, but also shares a similar culture to her own ethnic group, especially in terms of serpents. As the nation of wisdom and knowledge, it makes sense that Sumeru's most notable characters are accomplished scholars, and Alhaitham is perhaps the most popular one. Since much of Sumeru was inspired by the Middle East, his inspiration was also from a Middle Eastern scholar. His name was Ibn al-Haytham, also known as al-Haytham. He was an Iraqi Arab scholar, most famous for works in optics. Just like how Galileo is called the father of astronomy, Ibn al-Haytham was known as the father of modern optics. This is because most of the eye and light-related sciences of today would not exist without him. For example, many of us today know that vision occurs when light reflects off of an object and into one's eyes, allowing the brain to process an image. However, Ibn al-Haytham was one of the major scientists to defend this idea, as he published many works trying to prove it to the rest of the world. This is because scientists at the time argued the incorrect idea that light comes from the eyes and to an object. Some of Ibn al-Haytham's other advancements are related to the laws of refraction, which has to deal with the passage of light as it bounces from various objects. He used these principles of light reflection to make the very first camera obscura, the medieval ancestor to what would then be the modern camera invented in France centuries later. In Sumeru, Alhaitham's skills in combat seem to reflect the accomplishments of Ibn al-Haytham. Most of his elemental attacks refer to the light laws of refraction, especially how the light in his elemental burst reflects from different surfaces, just like in a camera obscura. Beyond optical science, Alhaitham does have other similarities to the real scientist. One of the most important ones is the scientific method. You see, most modern scientists use what is the scientific method, a process used to reach a reasonable conclusion with the data collected. Some of Alhaitham's dialogue matches this process.
All I have to do is find the weakest link, deal with the causal factors, and everything else tends to resolve itself.
Ibn al-Haytham also argued that if a scientist were to become a legitimate seeker of truth, then they are obligated to question every piece of written material he reads, even if it is from another scholar or source of high renown. In al-Haytham's own words, the duty of the man who investigates the writings of scientists, if learning is his true goal, is to make himself an enemy of all that he reads, and attack it from every side. These ideals are also shared by Alhaitham, as his ability to question the authority of the wisest Sumeri academia leaders matches Ibn al-Haytham's ability to see falsehoods even in the most trusted of sources. This shared ideology between al-Haytham and his Iraqi version is the reason why our al-Haytham was able to overthrow Azar's corrupt rule of the academia and succeed him as the new Grand Sage. In addition to al-Haytham, there is another scholar from Sumeru that is based on a real-life one, that being Tighnari, who was named after Arab scholar al-Tighnari. In real life, al-Tighnari was an Arab scientist famous for making discoveries in the field of agronomy and botany, which are both studies of plants. Al-Tighnari did not just examine the anatomy of plants to write them down. In addition to finding better methods of growing crops, he also found ways to cure diseases of infected plants. Does this sound familiar? In Sumeru, Tighnari is not just a normal botanist, but like al-Tighnari, his primary work focuses on curing plants of diseases, especially the ones infected by the withering zones in the Sumeru forest. Beyond work in plants, they also have similar cultural origins. Though his name is Arabic, Tighnari has a lot of inspiration from the native Amazigh people of North Africa. His design as a fennec fox, and even fashion, match this North African ethnic group. But how is this similar to al-Tighnari? Though al-Tighnari was Arab himself, he was born in Andalusia, or Al-Andalus, the southern region of Spain that was, at the time, occupied by Moroccan Muslims. Morocco itself is a combination of both Arabs and Amazighs, so overall, Tighnari matches not only the academic achievements of al-Tighnari, but even his cultural background as a combination of both Arab and Amazigh. However, not all of Sumeru's characters are based on nerdy scholars. Dihya was named after the queen of the Amazigh ethnic group native to North Africa. Her name was also Dihya, who was born in what is now modern-day Algeria. In real life, Dihya led her Amazigh people against the invading Muslim Arabs who were trying to colonize and oppress the natives of North Africa. Her fight for freedom for her Amazigh peoples has led her to become a symbol against Arab and later on French oppression of the native North Africans. Likewise, Dihya is also known for despising the Sumeru academia's oppression of her own desert people. In addition to fighting for her tribe against foreign rule, the two women also used a similar tactic in doing so. When fighting off the Arabs, Queen Dihya would use what was known as scorched earth tactics. This includes burning and destroying accommodations like food and shelter that could be used by the enemy. Just like her real-life counterpart, Dihya in Genshin quite literally scorches her enemies with her pyro vision. Perhaps the biggest similarity between the two is the people they represent. Though we may think of Arabs when hearing of North Africa, Dihya's Amazighs were there way before them, much like how Native Americans were in the Americas way before Europeans and other ethnic groups were. Amazighs were known for being nomadic, meaning they would wander from place to place in small communal camps. They also constructed cave villages, as seen in countries like Tunisia, where they would build homes with clay and sometimes into the earth in order to get insulation against the desert environment. Similarly, Dihya's people, known as the Hermites, also fit the same profile. Just like the Amazighs that wander the North African desert, Hermites are known as wanderers in the Sumeru desert. They live in small tribal camps, as seen in the Golden Slumber quests, and cave settlements such as Aru village, which have very similar clay and cave homes to the Amazigh houses of Tunisia. Both Hermites and Amazighs also have a status as respectable warriors. Just like how Hermites in Sumeru are often hired as elite mercenaries, Amazighs in real life have been hired by multiple people throughout history due to their unique fighting reputation. Perhaps one prime example is the use of Moroccan Amazighs by the French to fight the Germans and Italians in World War II. Dihya also has another important callback to Amazigh culture. Her symbolism is mostly that of a lion, with her nickname being the Flame Mane, and her constellation being a lion itself. Likewise, the Barbary lion of North Africa has always been an important symbol in Queen Dihya's Amazigh culture. Though extinct, it represents the strength of the Amazigh people to survive not only the harsh desert, but also invasion by multiple outsiders to take their land. Furthermore, Dihya is not the only woman from Sumeru to be based on a real queen. That other character is Candace. Most players noticed that Candace of Aru village has a lot of Egyptian influence. Her Egyptian symbols, like that of Horus and Isis, only scratch the surface of what she is truly based on. Her inspiration comes from a historical position held by the women of a northern North African ethnic group. These are the Nubians, a North African people native to southern Egypt and most especially northern Sudan. In what is now Sudan, there was once a great nation of Nubian people known as the Kush Kingdom. In its royal family, there was a female royal position known as a Kandake, which is where the name Candace comes from. A Kandake is the term used for any sister of the current Kush king. Because the Nubians were matrilineal, the Kandake were usually the one to become the queen of Kush if the king died. This means that the Kandake's sacred duty is to continue the protection of the Kush, even if their king shall die. This responsibility of the Kandake is also seen in Candace's story. Just like how the Kandake would continue to protect the Kush kingdom well after the king's death, Candace continued to protect the desert people of Sumeru well after her ancestor, King Deshret, passed away. Therefore, both the Kandake and Candace continued to protect their people well after her king's passing. However, you may be wondering why Candace has Egyptian design if she was named after the Nubian Kandake of modern-day Sudan. Well, the truth is, Egypt has actually had a Nubian dynasty. While its original dynasties were ethnically from Egypt, other Egyptian dynasties include Persian, Greek, and yes, a Nubian dynasty. The same Kush kingdom that the Kandakes led ended up conquering their northern Egyptian neighbors, ultimately establishing their own Nubian Egyptian dynasty, which is why Candace having both Nubian and Egyptian influence is pretty accurate. It's pretty obvious to most people that Inazuma is Genshin's Japan, therefore most of its characters look Japanese, all except for one. Thoma looks like a white blonde European since he is from Mondstadt originally, a country that mostly represents Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Yet, Thoma works for a Japanese family and wears Japanese samurai armor. But was there really a white samurai in real life? When thinking of white samurai, you may think of Tom Cruise's American character from the film The Last Samurai. However, the real Western samurai included ones from France, Germany, and the Netherlands. But since Thoma is from Mondstadt and not French Fontaine, we'll be focusing on the Dutch and German samurai. Jan Houston was a Dutch sailor who became one of the first samurai to be of Western origin. He came to Japan on one of his many trading ventures, as the Dutch were one of the most powerful overseas economies at the time. Thoma also came to Inazuma for trade, specifically for wine, but unlike Houston, he got stranded and stuck there. However, just like Houston, Thoma was able to gain the trust of the Kamisato clan and become one of their trusted samurai. In addition to Dutch samurai, there was also Edward and Henry Schnell. Though less documented than the previous one of our list, the two still fit Thoma's description as a European, and more accurately, German samurai. Above all the characters I have mentioned in this video, none pale in comparison to A, whose historical inspiration and portrayal is perhaps the most accurate in the game. A and her puppet Raiden Shogun were both based on a real shogun from Japanese history. His name was Tokugawa Ieyasu, and his reign and motivations are all reflected in A. The first similarity between the two of them has to be their decision to close their countries for the same reason. Let's start off with A. We all know that ambition is a key part of Genshin Impact's story. All of our characters get their visions as a product of their ambition. However, A was able to see the dark side of ambition. She saw how this principle, when taken too far, led to arrogance. A witnessed through the cataclysm of Khvarena that this arrogance led to the collapse of what was once the most advanced nation at the time. She lost her elder sister Makoto to the cataclysm and was not ready to have arrogance take down Inazuma either. So she was willing to do anything at any cost to preserve the eternal stasis and peace within her Inazuma. To do this, she closed off her entire country to foreign influence and decided to ban the greatest symbol of ambition, the elemental visions, as ambition was the cause of arrogance. So, without elemental visions, there would be no ambition, and without ambition, there would be no arrogance that would lead to cataclysm, perfectly fitting her ideal of eternity. The same applies to Tokugawa Ieyasu. Tokugawa Ieyasu grew up in feudal Japan, a war-torn landscape where territories were in an eternal state of bloodshed. He noticed that having people of different motivations and ideals only bred division that erupted into war. So, when the emperor made him shogun or military dictator of Japan, Tokugawa Ieyasu started to take precautions to prevent the divisions that would lead to war. The first one was to make sure everyone in Japan had the same beliefs. By his logic, if everyone thought the same, especially religiously, there would be no need to fight each other. No need to fight each other means no war. But what was his way of enforcing this? Just like Tokugawa closed down the entirety of Japan, and foreign, non-Japanese religions were banned from ever reaching the Japanese people. Just like how forbade God-given visions from being owned by civilians, while religions deemed Japanese, like Buddhism and Shintoism, were still allowed in Japan. People who held beliefs that were non-Japanese were punished, just like those who opposed the Vision Hunt decree. Japanese Christians and Portuguese missionaries were often tortured and killed by the shogunate's soldiers. Just like how banned human ambition to prevent catastrophic arrogance, Tokugawa Ieyasu banned differing beliefs to prevent another Japanese war, as he believed that having a multitude of different religions in Japan would only lead to more internal conflict. In fact, Tokugawa Ieyasu's ban of religions could be likened to Ei's Vision Hunt decree. You see, religion is defined as a connection with a god. Likewise, elemental visions in Teyvat are also seen as connections to gods, as they are given once godly presence recognizes the ambition of one individual.
哦，是吗？原来没给过你号码，但这不是你抓我的理由。下次。